All right, so like I said, I was going to give people a few minutes to sign in, and it looks like we have people coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone and say thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. My name is Billy D. I'm a sales consultant with Intrinsic Clinical Systems, and today I'm going to tell you about our clinical trial management system called Intrinsic. So first thing I want to do is read a bit of feedback we recently received while demonstrating our system to a potential client who has since purchased Intrinsic. This is the easiest CTMS I've ever seen. And that quote is from a senior vice president of program and clinical management. And my goal today is to show you our system and have you walk away with that same thought. So before we get into the system itself, I want to talk to you a little bit about how our CTMS came to fruition. Two consultants, Eric Lake and Matt Kiernan, worked together for a company called Barnett Consulting. And they enjoyed the work, the clients, and the culture, and they were implementing CTMS systems back in the 90s when Impact was the only CTMS in town. Now, eventually, Barnett was bought out by another company, and they decided they were going to recreate that great culture. So they started Pharmaca Consulting, a consulting company with 35 employees that specializes in the pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaca has continued to implement CTMS solutions over the past 10 years, and our role during this time was to provide a service to help clients and implement their CTMS. So during these projects, we would sit through vendor demos with our clients, and when the vendors would leave, we would hear the honest feedback about the CTMS systems. And there were some common themes we heard during these vendor reviews. And, not only would we hear about the demos we just saw, but then the conversation would spill over and we would hear about the frustrations they had with other systems they've used in the past. And not only were they frustrated, but we would hear the same frustrations by different clients listed over and over again. So let's talk a little bit about them. Lots of CTMSs, particularly the bigger ones, have 5 to 7 modules, but most companies don't use several of the modules. A very good example is the grants module or the drug supply module. So you're overpaying for a one-size-fits-all solution when all they needed were a few key features. Clients felt the technology was antiquated and fell into one of two categories. So the first type were the cash cows, right? They were expensive and had tons of existing clients, so why would they update? They seemed to be operating under the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the second type were systems that were half and half. That is, the system was half out of the box and the other half you had to build. Another problem was a heavy IT footprint. So the system architecture still required a heavy IT influence as the platforms they were built on varied widely. And finally, a fragmented user experience. One particular complaint from a pharma client was that their CTMS had 5 different ways to navigate to the same endpoint, what makes the system a lot more complicated. So let's take a step back from CTMS for a minute and let's just talk about the evolution of interfaces. So I want you to think about different interfaces you've worked with from your email and think about how that has changed. Think about Word, Excel, even think about things you don't use for work like Google Maps, iTunes, or your digital cable. And think about how those interfaces have changed over the past decade. This spring, my 2-year anniversary with Fios came around and I had to do the cable provider shopping, and of course it came down to Verizon and Comcast, and eventually I got both, came in with the same features and channels for around the same price, and Verizon was all in my house. It would have been less of a headache to go in. Yet I went with Comcast pretty much for the interface alone. I love it. It was sleek, it was fun, it was easy to use, and it was cool to look at. And while most systems we are all using are becoming easier and easier and more configurable, CTMS solutions just don't seem to be following suit. So we all love these sleek interfaces with easy navigation, and we wonder why CTMS interfaces are still living in the 90s. I mean, if you look at the images on the screen, there's a ton of unnecessary navigation options, links and tabs in these screenshots that make the system so confusing to work with. They have menu bars that seem endless. If you spend more than 3 minutes navigating a system, you have 100 tabs open. And there's so many areas open on the screen that you aren't exactly sure where you're editing information and where it's being saved. So after hearing these same pain points from clients and seeing the lack of innovation in existing solutions, we started to wonder, what's the holdup? Why are we still working like this? Which brings us to Intrinsic Clinical Systems. So we built this to be light, modern, and easy to navigate. We built it in a way that someone who knows very little about clinical trials will need little to no training to use it. We built it using the Microsoft Dynamics as the operational platform. And Dynamics is a platform you can build applications on. So we built a wrapper around a platform that people are familiar with. It's Microsoft. People know how to use these products, so the CTMS isn't going to feel completely foreign to them. Now, as Intrinsic is built on a mature platform, we fall somewhere, in between the big, expensive machines that have been around since the 90s and the smaller startups that are all cloud-based. Now, building on the Microsoft Dynamics platforms means we're the only CTMS on the market with native Microsoft Office Suite integration, which means we're able to leverage SharePoint for storage of your eTMF documents. Why should retrieving a document that's associated with your clinical trial require you to use different systems for your CTMS and your eTMF? Being built on the Microsoft platform offers other advantages, such as Outlook, SharePoint, and Excel integration. A study manager articulated this best when they were saying, so if I'm having my cup of coffee in the morning, checking emails, I can also view reports from Intrinsic right in my Outlook, like my morning dashboard. And he's exactly right. Another example of native Microsoft integration is users can do quick and easy uploads of data from Excel templates directly into Intrinsic, eliminating the need for data entry and the errors that come with it. Now that we've covered, a little bit of the integration, let's cover the navigation. So on this screen, you can see I've highlighted a portion of the page which we refer to as general entities. And entities are a grouping of information, such as studies, investigators, and so on. So general entities are used across the specific things, such as a particular trial. The general entities create the lists that are used for all the studies so that there's data standards across the portfolio. Last week I was explaining the navigation to a mid-sized pharma company, and they said, I haven't seen your demo yet, but I get it. And that was really exciting for us to hear. For data integration and reporting, we can easily pull in data from your project management systems, EDC systems, safety systems, and all your CRO systems as well. And this will create a unified eClinical visualization tool. So I'd like to do a quick recap. Intrinsic has native integration with Outlook, SharePoint, and Excel. Intrinsic is a CTMS that is built on a mature platform. We're leveraging Microsoft world-class infrastructure that has geolocated servers across the globe. So downtime will not be an issue. And I'd like to take some time to walk you through a few sections of the system and show you how it works. So I'm just going to jump over to the system really quickly. So in the PowerPoint presentation, we talked about the variety of pain points and where we focus with our CTMS. And a lot of what we talked about is user interface. So let's talk about that navigation. It's easy and it's simple. This top bar up here contains things we refer to as the general entities and the specific entities. And I'm going to navigate between the two as the first part of the demo and show you how that's done. And the second part of the demo, we'll talk about studies, milestones, enrollment, which are all specific entities. So let's talk general first. You see things in this list: programs, studies, countries. These are all things that are shared across the portfolio. General entities are going to be used for the setup of the CTMS when you first start using it. You and all the other managers are going to pull on this information at the general entity level. And so what do I mean by pull on this information? So let's take institutes, for example. If I go over and I select the institute's general entity, and let's say you've created a program and then you've created a study with that program, and you're at a point where you need to add an institute for that trial. You can assign an institute to that study, and once you've selected one from this list, this is where you're going to be pulling from. Once again, everyone in the organization is seeing the same general entity information. In this case, like I said, it's institutes. And this ensures that the information is uniform and that managers aren't entering in different spellings for the same institute twice. Now, the second reason general entities are important, for example, is that if you click on the program general entities, right, you see a list of all the programs at a quick glance. So you see all the key information, you get a sense of what's going on. But I can also use it as a navigation tool. So let's say I wanted to get into program, this heart disease program right here. I can click on it, and I'm in it. So the same thing goes for studies. If I go up here and I go to the studies general entity and I click it, I can see a list of all that information as well and navigate to a specific study. So let's go back to programs, and I'm going to show you how I can click on, like I said, this breast cancer oncology program. And if I were to right now create a study and associate it with this program, the study will pull all this program information, like the therapeutic area, the timing, the program lead, and that's going to create those data standards and allow for the easy navigation that we were talking about to the specific entities. So that's general entities. Now I want to show you the importance of specific entities. So if I wanted to access study ABC 302-100, I could go up here and I could click on the study's general entity and get to that list that I showed you previously. But I don't have to do that. What I can do is click on this arrow right here, and that's going to show you all your most recently reviewed studies. And since study 302 is one I've been working on, I can click it right here. Like I said, I don't have to deal with that entire list that I'm not actively working on right now. So let me recap. I can show you how simple and easy it is to navigate. If you want to see a list of programs, you click Programs. Or I can click ones I've been working on via the drop-down. Okay? Now, while I'm in any specific program, if I click on a program, I can easily and quickly jump to a specific study just by going here, clicking on Studies, and clicking on that 302 that we saw before that's now in the first place. So there, I just trained you on the user interface, okay? So let's dive deeper into specific entities. And let's say I'm the trial manager for study 302, and I click on the drop-down. I get in here. Right now, as you can see, up here in the ribbon, this is now no longer are we dealing with general entities and things across the entire portfolio. When we click up here in the ribbon, we're dealing with specific entities. Now, this is all things that deal with the trial. So that's how you navigate between one and the other. Most of the time, trial managers will spend their time in a few studies. So as long as they know how to navigate between studies, they're good. They don't have to know about the general entities and how to set it all up. So let's go ahead and click on program, that heart disease study that I was in before. We're going to go into TPO, the heart disease, and get all that general information. We see the manager, the budget, and it displays everything that we've already populated, and we don't need to see this right now. Now we can scroll up and down to look at all this information on the page, or you can click on all these headers, which collapses the information. And that's just how I prefer to work with the system, because if I don't need to see all this information right now, I'd prefer not to. So if we collapse all these, we get to the point where we see the studies that are associated with the program. And if we can click on one of these, we can get to the study. Very simple. So I'm going to click on the first one, 001. And you'll see that the ribbon up here is changed. So now you see the specific entity is 001. We're on the general screen for the study. Everything's collapsed. And right on the screen, we collapse those. You see there's countries associated with everything right down here. So this is all the study information that we've already populated. I don't need to see it anymore. So we go down to related study countries, and it's very easy to add a country for your study. You click on this plus sign right here, and you get an overlay where you're able to add in all that information very easily. If I collapse that, the same thing with issues. It's going to be the same exact way. You click the plus sign, and you're able to add these issues. And making sure issues are logged and properly closed out, and there's a record of them, we all know is very important. So you can create an issue the same way. It's the same format. We kept it very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse issues. And now we get to enrollment. Now to do enrollment with the CTMS, you have to set up 4 things. You have to set up the planned enrollment tracking level, the actual enrollment tracking level, the monthly enrollment planning, and to distribute monthly planning to the lower levels. So the reason that these are important is we designed the CTMS to be flexible, and you can set it up at the study country, or the site level. And there's no right answer here, but we know people have different preferences, so we keep it flexible. Now this is done once when you're setting everything up, and then that's how your enrollment is tracked through the levels of your study. So let's navigate a little bit more with that specific entity navigation. So I can go up and hover over the ribbon, and then I can go down to study countries. And here you see those countries that were over in the previous study table. Okay, and if I go up to the top, there's also a specific entity for sites, which is going to be displayed the exact same way. Now if I go over to, excuse me, 1 second, sorry, my system got a little buggy there. If I go to enrollment, I can see all the enrollment for the countries that I have loaded in here previously. So if I click down here in the United States, where I've already started tracking the enrollment, I can toggle between the enrollment planning, where I see plan screened and actual screened, and the actual enrollment. Everything is tracked here. So if I go back up to the study entity specific navigation, and I can go into milestones. So the milestones are entity specific to the trial. This is one of the system's editable tables. So you can edit the information here, and just as you track the information previously in enrollment, everything in this table is editable. I apologize, my Citrix, the webinar, it seems to be a little frozen right there. There we go. So everything in this table is editable, and you're able to import it and export it easily. So if I click on this export button, I get export interface, which is very similar to the layout of the table. It is no longer editable, and I can go up here and I can export this to Excel. Now this is where you decide how you wish to export the data. You can export it as a static worksheet, right? And then when you open it, you see the sheet as it is with all the information from the day you exported it. Or you can do it as a dynamic worksheet, whereas if you save this to your desktop and don't open it a month later, it's going to be refreshed with all the updates that have happened in the system. Any pivot tables, any other information, they're all going to be refreshed each time you open, so you don't have to build your reports over and over again. Now, while we're talking about exporting, I should note that we often get requests that people want to know, our CRO has a lot of our data. Do we have to enter things manually? And you can if you want to. Or you can export a template spreadsheet, just like I showed you, and send it to your CRO for them to complete, and then import it back into the system. And it's a low-tech way for a really efficient solution. So that's milestones specific. I showed you enrollment. It's all pretty straightforward. So finally, I want to get to reports. So if I go back, I can click on the reports. We've populated all the countries, the institute, the investigator information. You can see we have 12 reports right out of the box. I'm going to show you one. If you'd like to see more, please shoot me an email, and I'm happy to go through or set something up. I'm going to roll through the enrollment by graph. But first, I want to show you one more time how easy it is to navigate around the system. So if I want to go and look at my list of programs and click into that heart disease program, I can. And if while I'm in here I need to check on something on that breast cancer study that I was working on, I can go right here and click on that study very easily. So it's that simple, it's that quick to get into a program, into a study, and back out again. It's something that we're really proud of, so I just wanted to hit it one more time. So let's go back to reports. And like I said, I'm going to show you the enrollment by graph. So here it is for that breast cancer study that we were looking at earlier. You can filter by study, by month, and this is going to give you an idea how you're progressing with enrollment, planned versus actual. Let me open it up so you can see a little bit bigger. We also have a data platform called Insights that does the integration for Intrinsic. You can integrate data from CTMS systems, EDC, project management tools, or any other system you want. We can do this as a service in the cloud, so you give us access to all your data, and then we integrate everything in the cloud, and you can go get access to your reports. Some clients actually use this to integrate their drug safety information as well. All right, so that's the report, and now I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint, and I want to get back to this. Like I said, this is the easiest CTMS I've ever seen. I wanted to revisit this quote about our system being easy because that's the biggest response we get when we show this. We're excited about it. We're happy that you took time out of your day to let us show it to you. It concludes the session, and I want to open it up to any questions. And let me go ahead and see what questions we have coming in. Okay, first up, can CROs use the CTMS? Yes, they absolutely can. You would just have to pay for a license for them. You would have to pay so that they were able to use those. I'm looking to build a data warehouse for reporting. Does your CTMS do this? It does, but it depends on how much information you want to get. If you're looking for other CTMS systems, EDC, drug safety, we have another platform that I talked about called Insights that handles the data integration and visualization. So that's absolutely something we could do for you. Let's see here. Can you explain the Excel export feature in more depth? Can I do ad hoc reporting using the Excel? How does this work? Yeah, like I said, like I showed you at the end there, you have a variety of options when you're exporting at the end. You have that static report. You have the dynamic pivot tables that come in where everything updates. So there's a lot of options you can do with that importing, exporting, and reporting. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, I apologize. So do you have a device accountability module? That is a question, and I actually have Nick and Matt on the line. Nick and Matt, could you weigh in on that? The question once again was, do you have a device accountability module?
Yeah, we currently don't have one for the device part of it, but depending upon what you want to do in terms of collecting the data and tracking, it might be something we could easily add in, but we can follow up with you offline to get more specific ideas of what you want to do.
Thanks, Matt. Once again, the question was, do CROs integrate with the system? I think I covered that one, but like I said, yes, we do, and you could either have to pay for the license, or you could use it in a way, like we said, that importing exporting tool where you send them things and they were able to send the data that we could easily put into the system, upload into the system.
And just one quick comment on that, Bill, is that people have different ways in which they want to get data from CROs. Sometimes they'll want to try to make an automated connection so they don't have to worry about data uploads, things like that. Other clients will say, just give a CRO access to the system, enter it. Others will say, let's go low tech, look at a CSV export and go the upload route that Billy mentioned. But any of those are possible. It's more a preference of what companies like to do.
Thanks, Matt. In the beginning, it was stated that this is Microsoft. Can you provide more information, for example, SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013? I think that might be one for Matt or Nick as well.
This is Nick. So this system is built on Microsoft Dynamics. The current version is the 2015 release. So SharePoint it's not really involved unless you want to link it to store documents. But this system is built on Dynamics in the cloud. So it can be both on Dynamics Online.
Yeah, you sound a little.
Yep. Or it could be Dynamics on-prem, and either would work. We tend to set the system up online the most because of its convenience, online accessibility for CROs. But that option to put it on-prem, on an on-prem installation of Dynamics is possible as well.
Yeah, basically there's a variety of things you could do with SharePoint, either version of 2010 or 2013, in terms of the interaction with Dynamics and SharePoint can be fairly seamless, but there's a lot of CTMS systems over the years. They've been more built to track dates on documents as opposed to housing the actual documents themselves. But you could easily have your ETMF set up in SharePoint and have documents and data pushed back and forth between the CTMS and the ETMF. Or even other just general, you want like a study portal where all your information is contained, you can have that in there as well.
Thanks. And a follow-up question from earlier when someone asked about integrating with CROs and we talked about the uploading. She said, no, I mean data feeds with CROs.
Yeah, so the data feed could be, you can do an API where you can connect directly to the system, but frankly, many times companies don't want systems connected directly, so sometimes they'll set up a separate database outside of a system that we can connect directly to. So we could definitely do that. I mean, any of those things are possible. It's really just going to boil down to the people who own the system, what they're willing to do in terms of a direct connection or feed. But there's a lot of different ways we could set that up. That's not a problem.
Great. So is the system cloud-based? If so, please provide more information.
Yes, it is 100% cloud-based, built on Microsoft Dynamics Online with the option of going on-prem. So it's most of the installations that we like to do now are in the cloud. Obviously, it's because of its conveniency, and it's as simple as assigning somebody a license and giving them an ID, and then it's accessible from anywhere. And that whole system is built on Microsoft's platform. The entire stack of Microsoft, what they offer now on Office 365, Dynamics Online, Azure, it's all one big ecosystem, so you have access to all of it. And with the one license for CRM, you get access to the Intrinsic Clinical Systems, CTMS. But that same ID would follow you throughout the whole Microsoft.
Thanks, Nick. It looked like you trailed off at the end there, but I think you were wrapping up anyway, so thank you. Do you have a monitoring visit trip report capability?
Yeah, that question's coming up pretty often. We currently do not have one. We're building that in right now. But part of it comes down to, if somebody wanted to get something set up right away, we could probably get it done fairly quickly if it's simpler. In other words, let's say if you want to fill out trip reports, say in a Word document, we could easily pick that up in SharePoint and get that done. If you're trying to do something that's a little more complex around, say, building forms in SharePoint so that you can pull data from those forms and run a variety of reports on that data that's was input into the trip report, that's what we're working on right now, so we don't currently have a system. So we can get a trip report module done for you fairly quickly if it's more around Word documents. If it's something around forms and reporting and things like that, then that's something we're working on right now. It's going to take a little more time.
Thanks, Matt. This is, I'm sure, going to be a question for Nick. Are there any browser version limitations?
That's a good question. Yeah, anything from IE8 and up is supported with any version of Safari or Chrome or Firefox. But below IE8, there are known issues because of its IE8 or IE7's implementation of CSS. So there are some known issues with anything below IE8, but anything above that is fine. Works great.
Thanks, Nick.
You're welcome.
Are there limitations as far as needing a certain MS Office version on the end user side?
There is. So the current support, and this is not an intrinsic thing, this is a Microsoft support issue. So they support Office 2010 and Office 2013 with very limited support for Office 2007. So we like to state that Office 2010 and 2013 are the supported version.
Thanks. Do you have enterprise pricing module?
Enterprise. Yeah, I mean the pricing is basically broken out where it's per user per month cost per license, and then you basically have it tiered based on the number of users. So if you have more users with a company, the cost per user per month goes down. But if you have more questions on that, we can definitely follow up with you on the specifics.
Great. And then I think we have one more question. If anybody else has them, please type them in, but this is the last one that we've received. Can you talk a little bit about permissions in the system? Are the permissions by study, etc.? I think I can. There are different roles within the system, so different users are going to have different read and edit access rights. And we have a user manual that once you're working with the system, we can send you, or I can send you something offline so you can see a little bit more of the rights. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, you can update those rights once you're in the system to see who you want to have access to what information.
Right. Yeah. You described it well. It's a CRM and Intrinsic CTMS. They're role-based systems, so you define the role at the very top of its architecture, and you apply the permissions at the very top, and that role has that access. So if they're a study manager and they can edit studies, that's that. It stops there, and then they can edit the studies. But if you compare it to something like SharePoint that is not role-based, you have to assign permissions all the way down to the item level, and we all know how confusing that can get. This is not that way. This is a role-based system where it's defined at the top.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes.
And we had one more question come in. What about language capabilities? Can the system, for example, be in Japanese? That's one I'm not sure of.
Can it be in Japanese? Yeah, yes, it can, but that would be the interpretation of the browser and the MUI of the laptop. So the regional setting on the actual laptop, if it's set to Japan, then the majority of the system menus would be Japanese. The data wouldn't, though. Not by default. The data would be whatever you typed in. You know,
Okay.
study ABC would still say study ABC.
Thanks, Nick. We got another one come in. How are dates stored in the system? Is it day, day, month, month, 4-digit year, or day, 3 month, 4-digit year? I believe it is month, month, day, day, year, year, 4-digit year. Is that right, Nick?
That's a good question. You know, I don't know. I'm not looking at it right now. Yeah.
That's one we can just follow up on as well, just to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. I can follow up after this.
Yeah, because the date formats, the default date format looks like it has one format, but the format itself can be changed very simply. You click on the button. It's never been a big issue. It's so easy to change, but I don't know what the default is. Format.
Does your system allow ASCII extended characters? So, for example, if clinical operations data can be entered as another language.
Yeah, I see text. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's definitely one we can get back to them on.
Okay. Those last two questions I've made a note to follow up with. And as of now, that is all the questions we received. So once again, thanks everybody for taking time out of the day to join us. Nick and Matt, thank you for taking time to come in and answer questions. And if you have any other questions afterwards, please feel free to send me an email. My email is on the screen. Once again, thank everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.